Good morning. Welcome to a new edition of Fumblegate, October 24th, 2019. I'm Jason Grefer. That's former Cincinnati Bengal Adam Kieft. Twitter handles at the bottom. Kieft needs to mute his computer. That's become a tradition here.
Yeah, I just like to start off the morning with not muting my shit.
The delay, the satellite delay there is just wonderful, given that it's 18 inches away from our equipment.
Given the technology, though, it's still pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is. So that's always a way to get the morning started there. So, yeah, obviously, as we always do, a big-time show here for you today. We'll talk about a couple in the NFL. We'll talk about a couple of good teams, one team not so much. And as always, we'll give you our 3 picks for the week. And today, we're going to have 2 editions of Will They Cover.
Yeah.
So...
Well, it's getting more and more obvious. So.
Yeah, well, it's the 2 obvious ones, but there's also strong opportunities to answer the question this week, as opposed to last week when Cincinnati was only like a 2-point dog to Jacksonville.
Yeah.
But I go back and watch. I told you they had no chance of winning that football game.
Turns out that was correct.
And the funny thing is, like Andy Dalton threw 3 fourth-quarter interceptions, and according to Pro Football Focus, he still had the highest grade of any Bengal in the game.
It's astonishing.
There you go.
But.
There you go.
It gives us quarterback controversy questions for Zach Taylor all week.
It does.
When you're not very good, you have to get questions like that.
And he didn't dodge. He didn't exactly answer the question.
No, he gave you the political answer of we're going to keep evaluating.
We're evaluating everything. Yeah. Okay. So we'll have that. Adam has like a page and a half full of kickers to trash. I mean, oh boy,
lots of good ones this week. I had to omit some because they weren't even that good. Like the ones who could only have tied it are the ones that I had to omit.
Yeah, there were other ones. There were other ones I saw that I didn't even bother making you aware of, just because I knew it wasn't going to make the cut.
Yeah, there was lots of good ones at all levels. Again, this week we found them at all levels.
So, and then we'll bring back our always fun discussion of Jim Harbaugh, because there's more around him now.
Yeah, and you can't not talk about Jim Harbaugh because Michigan is still trash. And once again, they proved it on Saturday, and we'll talk about it when we get there.
Elsewhere in the Big Ten, we'll also talk about it elsewhere in the Big Ten. Whatever Badger stuff was.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
apparently they decided not to get on the bus to go to Champaign.
And then supposedly there's stuff being floated out there, rumored around that Urban Meyer may possibly have some interest from a team down south again. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, Urban Meyer's going to have a new job, but we got an early front runner to who might be pursuing.
That's right. And then 3 big games to talk about as far as college football goes, and of course at the end of the show we'll give you our upset picks of the week. So let's get right into it, and let's start in the NFL today. The biggest storyline coming out of last week was the injury to Patrick Mahomes, the kneecap injury, and they believe it's not going to be a long injury. They basically said it was the best case scenario when the MRI was done, that he's only going to be out a couple of weeks. And in fact, as a matter of fact, he's actually going to be on the practice field today, probably not going to play this weekend.
No, they said he was throwing yesterday at practice, though. Just stand still, but he was throwing the ball yesterday. And it looks like he's, again, best case scenario when it came back with the MRI, literally just a dislocated kneecap with no other structural damage, which, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, is a great news for them.
Yeah, but looking long-term now, it looks like it's going to be Matt Moore running the show. They've put as Chad Henne, the guy that they've designated to return from IR.
Yeah.
A little surprised they wouldn't consider calling Tennessee up and see what they want for Marcus Mariota.
No, there was a lot of other options, the ways they could have gone, but they're going to roll with Matt Moore and Chad Henne as their quarterback.
But I also think, too, if it was a longer-term injury, maybe I
think you're just slapping a Band-Aid on it for now, because it appears that he's going to be back sooner than later.
Kansas City's 5-2. And they're going to be probably going to be without Mahomes this week, and maybe a couple of more. And so now you start to look long term, and everybody just kind of assumed that the Kansas City, the way things were going, probably had a pretty good shot of being the number 2 seed. Of course, New England's probably going to end up being the number 1 seed in the AFC.
They're worried about whether or not they're going to be a 16-0 regular season again. So I am assuming they're going to be a number 1 seed.
This is probably their best shot since they
actually did it.
Yeah. So now with Kansas City, the question is, can they keep things afloat enough to maintain that spot, the two spot? They're battling with Baltimore. That's the biggest challenge.
Currently tied with Baltimore for
that's the biggest challenge. And Baltimore, and I hate saying it, Baltimore looks really, really impressive right now.
They're really good.
John Harbaugh, and for all the verbal effluvia that comes out of his brother's mouth. He actually said this week, we've got something special brewing here. And right now, he's right.
Yeah.
Because, a very impressive 2-touchdown win up in Seattle on Sunday, and they just continue to – nobody's really figured out their offense and their defense. Boy, they trade for Marcus Peters, pick 6 right away. That pays dividends there. But is Kansas City have some concern here now that maybe they might not necessarily have that extra week?
I don't know if it's necessarily because of the Mahomes injury, which is where this question is leading, is so much that the Ravens are pretty freaking good. Like I don't think that either the way it's shaping up now, they are going to play a difficult game this Sunday without Mahomes, and next week without Mahomes. If they don't have Mahomes next week, they're playing the Packers, then the Vikings. Now they're both at home, but we always assumed that Arrowhead was a tougher place to play, but you look at their 2 losses this season, they're both at home to the Colts and the Texans, respectively. I think this one is the most important. This Sunday is the most important because the Packers are playing really well right now. We're going to talk about them here in a second. I think the best case scenario is they win a tight one. The worst case scenario is they could get blown out because who knows what Matt Moore is going to do against the Packers defense, because as we know, the Packers have decided to start playing defense last season, and now they found their offense this season, so they have a good combination of both. And if Matt Moore turns the ball over, this one could get ugly because it appears that Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur are on the same page offensively now. There was a little scare in the beginning of the season. I don't think as much as people read into it, because it appears like they got it all figured out going forward. So I think this week is important. Next week against the Vikings, I find less important because their offense is anemic right now.
Well, they did put up quite a bit last week against Oakland.
Yeah, but it's Kirk Cousins against Oakland. Like I just don't trust Kirk Cousins as far as I can throw him. So it's, I find it a little concerning that the next 2 weeks are difficult teams as far as defenses, but as long as Matt Moore can at least split those games, if Mahomes doesn't play against the Vikings, I think they're still okay. I think they're still in line to be the number 2 seed. But again, I think it's more to say about the Ravens too, because the Ravens are a really good football team, and like you mentioned, they got something special brewing there. I mean, you look at Lamar Jackson, who's leading all quarterbacks in rushing, obviously, but also has more rushing yards than I believe 7 other teams in the NFL.
He's up there as probably top 3 for MVP.
Yeah, I think he's doubling the Cincinnati Bengals in rushing yards this season by himself. So. And I don't know that that's an exaggeration. I believe he has almost 700 yards, and the Bengals are somewhere near 350 for the season. So, but yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily the injury is the biggest risk to being the number 2 seed. I would say just the Ravens' success is probably what's more the issue with it going forward, because currently being tied, obviously the injury to Mahomes is a little bit of a setback, and they're playing a very difficult team this Sunday, but I just think the Ravens have the chance to match them game for game. Basically, they both have opportunities to win every game they're going to be in, and that's what makes it difficult for them is they're not the runaway favorite, and I don't know if they were, even if Mahomes is healthy, I don't know if they're the runaway favorite to be the number 2 seed.
Well, Kansas City did already beat Baltimore earlier in the year. So,
they did.
So
it was a close game. It was a 5-point game.
It was a close game. But even so, the last few weeks, even the 2 losses for Kansas City notwithstanding their offense has slowed from the first month of the season, even with Mahomes in there. And I think one of the things that Houston was able to exploit, Indianapolis to a certain degree, but also Houston specifically, is the fact that Andy Reid's defense at times can struggle to get off the field.
Yeah.
And we saw Houston winning at Kansas City. They held the ball for more than 40 minutes. As we've said before, what's the best way to stop Patrick Mahomes?
Keep him off the field.
Exactly. And Baltimore has a running game that can do that, and Baltimore is finding itself more from week to week and what they have with Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram, and the like. I think if Mahomes misses any more than 2 weeks, then they have concern as far as the number 2 seed goes. Mainly because Baltimore is playing so well right now, and they're playing in a division that is garbage to this point. Now, it could have changed towards the end of the year, possibly. Cleveland's schedule lightens up considerably in the back half of the season, and Pittsburgh is trying to settle in now with what they believe should be Mason Rudolph, assuming he is fully healthy, and it looks like he will play this week against Miami, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I think because of that and the fact that the teams have slowly started to figure out you can keep possession and keep Kansas City's defense on the field, keep Mahomes off the field. I think that's the biggest reason why. But I think, if he misses any more than 2 weeks, the way it's going right now, I think you can go ahead and pencil in Baltimore with the first round bye.
Yeah, and again, you mentioned that now the third week is the Titans, which I don't think it matters who the quarterback is to beat the Titans, but it's at the Titans, so you never know. But the longer he misses, the more in jeopardy they are of losing that potential number 2 seed in the first round bye. But I think it's more, again, a testament to the Ravens and how well they're playing, that it's really, they kind of have to match each other down the stretch to see who's going to be the number 2 seed. But it's kind of fun to have the teams leading their divisions and having some stuff in jeopardy as far as, we thought early in the season the Patriots and the Chiefs were guaranteed top 2 seeds. The number of losses between them might be under 3. It still could be, obviously, but it's a little more fun to have a little more parity in the AFC, obviously, despite the Patriots probably looking at a 16-0 season or darn well could be close to that. Tough test for them this week. The Ravens actually play the Patriots this week, so there is a difficult test for the Patriots. But the Patriots' schedule shapes up pretty well for them. But the number 2 seed's still in jeopardy, and we'll see how it goes and where it goes from here. And obviously, with Patrick Mahomes' injury, we'll see how much that affects that.
The New England's at Baltimore next week. Actually, you're ahead of yourself by 1, but so that's going to be an important one, and we'll be keeping an eye on that going forward. Let's move on to the NFC side of the team. We're not going to worry about as far as the playoffs go,
no,
but we're still
probably not.
But we're still going to talk about them because there's this is a real head scratcher. It's the Atlanta Falcons.
Astonishing.
The Atlanta Falcons, they just continue to disappoint, and for whatever reason, stuff's just not going right there, and you just wonder. What is this? What is going on? Are they still hungover from blowing a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl?
I think it's too far removed from that.
Or what?
But what they are doing, I have no idea. It's astonishing because I believe I had them in the playoffs if we go all the way back to the NFL preview show, and it's astonishing how bad they are. It just their offense can't seem to get it started. Their defense is atrocious, literally the worst defense in football. They've allowed the most points in football. They're last in sacks and last in takeaways. They've already fired their defensive coordinator. But I don't know what the problem is, but it doesn't look good all around. Whatever Atlanta's doing, none of it looks good.
To me, it just looks like, and it looks like to me watching this team, that Dan Quinn had all of his energy sapped from him when they lost that Super Bowl to New England a couple of years ago. They just don't seem to have any kind of energy or fire about them. You want to put some people want to put the blame on Matt Ryan because he's a quarterback. Even last year, he was 35 touchdowns and 7 picks. Yeah. It's not all on him. And I know Devontae Freeman's been in and out of the lineup, but you look on the other side of the ball. The free agent signings on defense have not worked out. They're not drafting well defensively, and the problem they also have too, they are way, way into the cap even next year.
Yeah, they have a lot of money invested.
They're starting next year before any kind of free agents or draft picks, $6 million over the cap.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to try and finagle some moves there to make things work, and I don't know where you go from here. I mean. The belief is right now, and Arthur Blank a few weeks ago said, no, I'm fine. I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking with Dan Quinn. But then this past week, they lose again, and all of a sudden that tone changed pretty quickly to the point where a lot of people feel like when their bye week comes, which I believe is in the next week or two, that's when a change would be made. And at that point, you could understand it. I mean, given where Atlanta is and where they expect to be, and where they seemingly were a couple of years ago to just falling off a cliff like this, the head man has to be the fall guy for this. And I would wonder, with Atlanta moving forward, maybe you give Mike McCarthy a call and see if you can get some life back into that team, because we know Mike McCarthy's not short on fire and energy.
No,
and he can help out the offense. But to me, it just seems like ever since that loss to the Patriots, the energy out of this franchise is just gone.
Yeah, we we've both been scratching our heads about how bad the Falcons have been, and like you mentioned, there has to be a fall guy, and Dan Quinn has to be it, and we know that votes of confidence from the owners usually mean that they're under suspicion as far as whether or not they're going to continue with the same path going forward. And like you mentioned, the bye week may be the week to make the move. Now they play the Seahawks this week, and then they go into their bye week. So we may know something as soon as Monday morning on where the future of Dan Quinn stands. They're playing the Seahawks. You got to figure the Seahawks are going to win. We'll see where that goes from there.
Great question from Elder Boy, and you can answer this one. Devontae Freeman threw a punch at Aaron Donald and after they got blown up by the Rams and got thrown out.
Yeah.
Why do NFL and hockey players throw punches when players are wearing helmets?
I don't understand it at all. It's a waste of energy. Now, I will say getting punched in the helmet is a little bit of a shock. It doesn't damage anything. It doesn't hurt, but I don't understand why guys throw punches at helmets. It doesn't, like, the first move in a fight is always to rip the helmet off and keep your helmet on.
You're not going to break through the helmet.
No, I don't know. It was always funny in college to see a guy who would get his helmet ripped off and then let the other guy fight with his helmet on. I don't understand. It's just not smart, but I guess, with CTE going around, maybe that's why he's throwing punches at people's helmets.
A perfect example of why Atlanta is where they are.
Yeah, there's little to no control. Apparently, Dan Quinn has kind of lost the locker room, and he says, his quote is like, "Well, I still believe in these guys, and I still think they're buying into what I'm selling."
Zach Taylor saying the same thing, buddy.
I think that ship has sailed. And we've mentioned it before. The first person to fire is the first person that's looking for a new head coach, and you have the longest time to woo your new coach. So maybe that's the decision: is you get rid of Dan Quinn after this week. Likely going to be 1-7. Go into your bye week, get an interim guy for 2 weeks to prepare, and see what happens for the rest of the season. But yeah, I don't know if it's a Super Bowl hangover, but whatever it is, they have not figured a thing out since then. And maybe that was just a magical year, and maybe they just had everything and all the pieces in the right place. But they spent a bunch of money. You're assuming to put people around Matt Ryan, who's your franchise quarterback. Now they come out and trade Mohamed Sanu to the Patriots.
They got a second-round pick. That's a nice return.
It was a good return on investment. And like you mentioned with the cap number, I'm surprised they're not bigger sellers right now because they have some other tangible assets that they could be dealing. We still have a week left in free agency, but it wouldn't surprise me to see a few more moves out of them to get some money off their books to free up some money in free agency, and obviously accumulate a few more draft picks. The other thing I'll mention, and we talked about it before, is the problem they had the year before with not protecting Matt Ryan. This year, their first round draft pick has yet to play a game this year. Chris Lindstrom, who's an offensive guard. They drafted 2 rookies to be starters for them. One of them hasn't played any games at all, and McGarry's not playing well. Like it goes back to not being able to protect Matt Ryan, but it's not necessarily all his fault when your defense is the worst in the league. You're putting a lot on Matt Ryan's shoulders, and that's probably a bit of a reason for his 8 interceptions this season. But I don't know. I wish there was a cut and dry answer, but again, I think Dan Quinn's going to take the fall for this as soon as Monday might be the end of the road for him.
That's the interesting thing about it too, is that you just feel like even the franchise and Dan Quinn does not have an answer for it.
No.
And when they don't have an answer for it, and when he doesn't have an answer for it,
yeah,
that spells trouble.
Firing your defensive coordinator already this season, and you're still
and he's a defensive guy.
Yeah, and you haven't found anything. I saw that he said he's trying to delegate more of the defense instead of doing it all himself, so he can have the head coaching role a little more. It's not a good look. Whatever they're doing in Atlanta is not a good look. Again, for a team that I expected to make the playoffs, obviously at 1-6, look to be headed to 1-7. And probably firing their head coach in week 8 going into their bye week. So it's not good. I wish there was an easy answer, but I don't know what it is.
Let's move on to a guy who seemingly has it figured out right now, and it's your boy Matt LaFleur has Green Bay rolling. Yeah, first year guy. They're making moves on both sides of the ball. Aaron Rodgers just continues to do what Aaron Rodgers does, and just show why he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Like Matt LaFleur said, the old man still got it.
He does. Yeah, he still has it.
He still does get it.
That's for sure. And so you just you look at him right now. They're 6-1. He's by far and away been the best of all the
The new coaching hires.
The first-time head coaches. Yeah,
No
he is
question.
it right now, and so much so. Is he right now one of the top guys for a coach of the year?
I think he has to be. I don't see any other reason not. I mean, they missed the playoffs the last 2 seasons. They're 6-1 to start. It appears that they've got a lock on the NFC North right now. Now they got a tough stretch coming up. They got to go to the Chiefs, to the Chargers, home versus the Panthers, which you can probably pencil in as a win. But then they got to go to the 49ers. So 3 out of the next 4 games are on the road against playoff teams. This is going to be the stretch that really shows where the Packers are. Now we've seen that their defense stepped it up a little bit last year. They started off well on defense this year. Their offense has decided to kind of catch up with their defense, which is surprising to say about Green Bay and where they were. But Green Bay looks really good, and their offense has really turned it around. I got 8th in points, 9th in yards, 10th in yards per play, 5th best for not turning the ball over.
You can see some of the numbers up here. I mean, the biggest thing, as you said, is their defense is forcing turnovers. They've already more interceptions than all of last season.
Yeah.
They're forcing turnovers. You can see there, it's 16% of opponents' possessions they're forcing turnovers. That's nearly double from last year too, and you can see it translates directly into the middle line there. The points allowed.
Yeah. Yeah, getting more possessions for Aaron Rodgers is never a bad thing. They're fifth in red zone offense right now. So when they're getting in the red zone, they're scoring touchdowns. Just everything about them seems to be clicking. And like I said, 3 out of the 4 next games are going to be the challenges. This is the difficult stretch of their season. If you split the season into quarters, this is the most difficult stretch. The next 4 games at the Chiefs, at the Chargers, home for the Panthers, and then at the 49ers. Again, 3 out of those 4 are probably playoff teams. Again, we just talked about the Chiefs possibly with an AFC first-round bye, and the 49ers still being undefeated. That's a difficult stretch, especially on the road. Now, the 49ers one is a little bit interesting because their defensive coordinator, Rob Saleh, and head coach Matt LaFleur were GAs together at Central Michigan. Again, Central Michigan connection, but it is a quite interesting connection to have. The 2 of them actually went to the Houston Texans together, so they've coached together, not just the GA years. They were at the Houston Texans together, and that's where their careers kind of take a split. But again, young coaches and young defense coordinator, young head coach coaching against each other, and that one will be kind of fun, particularly if the 49ers are still undefeated at that time. Obviously we assume the Packers are still going to be playing well. It'll be interesting to see Rob's defense against Coach LaFleur's offense. But I think right now he has to be the coach of the year. If there's a midway point awards, he's the halfway through the year coach of the year. We'll see where it stands at the end of the season. But I think if they win the division and they make the playoffs, particularly if they end up with an NFC first-round bye, which is possible at this point, they're in line for it. I think he has to be the coach of the year. I don't think there's any question for a team and a storied franchise. That plays into it too. Obviously, the Packers franchise, the storied franchise that they have, and turning that franchise around after missing the playoffs for the last 2 seasons, I think he has to be the coach of the year if he continues the success and they win the division and clearly if they get a first-round bye.
I think especially given them the turnaround that they've immediately had since he took over for Mike McCarthy, who was canned halfway through last season. The only other guy I would say that has to be in the conversation for it is the obvious one. It's Bill Belichick. And the reason being is because of how good their defense has been all year long. I mean, their defense has allowed 1 passing touchdown and they have 18 interceptions through 7 games or whatever. Tom Brady is Tom Brady. There's more rumors out there now that maybe this year could be it for him. He is in the final year of his contract. He has like a 3-year deal he signed, but the final 2 years after this year automatically void at the end of the year. It was done for cap purposes. And so he's going to be a free agent after this year. They can't franchise him after the year is over. So, who knows? Who knows there? But the way that defense is playing, as good as they're playing right now, I think he has to be the other guy. Yeah, I think because of what LaFleur has done to turn Green Bay around after missing the playoffs the last 2 years, and here they are 6-1. I think that does give him the nod. But I think Belichick is the other one you got to throw in. And you got to throw in John Harbaugh too.
How do you feel about Kyle Shanahan?
Kyle Shanahan, yeah.
I mean, there's definitely other options. It just, again,
Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers and the Patriots are both on pace to have two of the greatest pass defense teams of all time.
Yeah, they're both playing really
well.
They're
there. I think, like I said, I think John Harbaugh has to be thrown in there too with what he's been able to do and get out of Lamar Jackson, and so that'll be interesting there. Comment in the chat there, regular analytics. Thank you for stopping in and having a chat with us here. Believing that maybe the Chargers should look at dealing Melvin Gordon to Atlanta. That'd be an interesting.
It would be an interesting.
He wants paid. It doesn't seem like the Chargers want to pay him.
Doesn't look like the Chargers are going to pay him the money he wants, and it's similar to the Trent Williams situation with Washington. It doesn't look like he's going to get the money he wants where he is. Yeah, I mean, it's a big trade piece. Like, there's definitely it commands a return on that investment. So it'll be interesting to see. Again, a week left in the trade deadline. There's still some more moving pieces to happen. I still think Trent Williams has got to get moved before the deadline because they're not going to pay him in Washington. Melvin Gordon, again, good point. Regular Analytics has here for us online. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see this last week of the trade deadline. See how the final trades shake out. Obviously, you know, the big one this week so far was Mohamed Sanu going to the Patriots for a second-round pick. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see where everybody is as far as moving people. But we did mention with Atlanta being so far over the cap already, makes it difficult for them to pay him the money that he may be interested in being over the cap already. We'll see what happens.
Also going to be tough, too, because they're going to have the way they're going. They're going to have a top of the first-round draft pick, and more than likely the Chargers would want a first-round pick for him, as they should.
Yeah, but to give up a top 5 pick.
It's an interesting idea, though. Regular analytics. Thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah, always like questions. If you guys got questions that you think need to be answered, we can give you our opinion on.
That's a clever idea. I hadn't considered that one. That's a pretty clever idea. He admits he is a Chargers fan.
Yeah.
So and they were doing all right before Gordon came back.
Well, yeah, you're not getting anything out of them, so
not a bad idea. Let's move on to the 3 games this week. We'll talk about the first one, as we alluded to before. Green Bay on the road at Kansas City. This is the Sunday night game. As we said, Kansas City more than likely not going to be having the services of Patrick Mahomes. And I'm looking at this game, and I don't even know. For me, the way Green Bay is playing right now, I don't even know that it would have mattered.
No, Green Bay's playing well.
Yeah, I don't know that it would have mattered anyway with this one. I have Green Bay winning this game, and especially without Mahomes, I have Green Bay winning by 2 touchdowns. I think there is that much of a gap, and I think Green Bay is playing that well.
Yeah.
Their defense, as we said, continues to force turnovers, and we've seen through the years with Matt Moore, when he has gotten to play, he's more than gracious with giving up the football.
Yeah, he's a turnover-prone quarterback.
He can be that. So he's got a good offensive system with Andy Reid there, but he's obviously not anything close to Patrick Mahomes. I have Green Bay winning this one 31-17.
Yep, and I don't do scores, but I have Green Bay winning this one too. I don't like you mentioned. I don't know if Patrick Mahomes makes a difference in this one. Even if he was playing, I wouldn't play him anyway. Obviously, if he did play, he would be slightly hobbled or, whatever it is. He's going to have something in the back of his mind, not being fully healthy. Matt Moore is too turnover prone for me, especially the way Green Bay's defense has been playing. And again, the relationship that LaFleur and Rodgers have seemed to forge here in the season, I like where they're headed. I like what they're doing. I think they win this one. I think it's an easier win for them than maybe it could have been earlier in the season. Now that we've seen 2 teams come in to Arrowhead and win already this season, neither of them I think are as good as the Packers. I think the Packers come in and win this one.
How about a couple of other suggestions? The regular analytics still bring up the point about Melvin Gordon. A couple of other teams that maybe necessarily fits there. First of all, Detroit. They put Kerryon Johnson on IR with a knee injury. Their earliest TV back now is week 16, so that there's a need there, and they're still in the playoff hunt.
Yep.
What about the Buffalo Bills?
Bills could certainly use a running back, and they seem to be in a position better than they have been in a long time. To
feel like they're in a position to go for it.
Yeah, and they're in a position to go for it. And now they play in a tough division, but their one loss is to the Patriots in a game they played very tough. And save a block punt could have won that game. You got to figure the only other divisional loss they have is probably going to be again against the Patriots. But down the stretch, the Bills seem to have it figured out. probably a surprise to most people. I don't think a lot of people had them in the position they were that they're currently in. But again, they're one game ahead of the pack as far as the AFC right now, with being the only one-loss team in the AFC. I think it's the time to go for it. And we all know playing in Buffalo, once it starts snowing, becomes more and more difficult for the teams that are coming in. It's an advantage for Buffalo. It really is. If they're willing to deal, I think it'd be a really good move for them.
Yeah, and if Buffalo, too, if you make this move for Melvin Gordon, you now have a 3-down back that can help solidify an offense that when they get to if they get into the playoffs, they can go on the road and win, because they're not going to get a home playoff game.
No,
because
probably
because
not,
New England's
because they're going to be the wild card.
Correct.
And the only option would be for the other wild card team to win, and they end up,
And it wouldn't
they
be
got to go on the
AFC
road. Yeah, they got to go on the road till the AFC Championship, no matter what.
Right. So that would be another reason why it would make sense. Frank Gore is just. He's keeping the fountain of youth to himself.
Yeah, somehow Frank Gore is still kicking, but it would be nice to have a Melvin Gordon Frank Gore combo in the backfield.
You're not kidding.
A little, youth will combined with a crafty vet back there.
Brian Sullivan says, and he's a big Lions fan, that if the Lions get close to the playoffs, they'll find a way to ruin it.
They'll find a way to Lions it.
Welcome to Cincinnati, Brian.
Yeah. Lions fans and Cincinnati fans are very similar. Lions have had a little more futility in their history. They haven't even made a Super Bowl yet. But, for a season that started off very promising, the Lions are not looking so hot right now.
Starting a little bit of a slide right now. And, I said, like you said, I think with Buffalo, the combination of Melvin Gordon and Frank Gore could be really nice, because you're taking some of the workload off of Frank Gore.
Yeah.
And
how long can a 37-year-old running back really hold up? 16 games. Now, again, the Fountain of Youth has been very kind to Frank Gore, but
here's Brian saying in overtime, they took the wind in overtime. Match that.
Yeah, that is true. Very, very true.
Excellent point, Brian.
Nice job, Sully. That's a great point.
Excellent point. So let's move on. The first of two editions this week of everyone's favorite game.
Will they cover?
Let's start with the Cincinnati Bengals. They're headed over the pond to take on the Rams in London. It's not a 9:30 kickoff, so you can actually
you get your Sunday morning. You can get up. You don't have to
get your
start
breakfast
drinking at 8 a.m. You can if you'd like, but you don't have to. Bengals fans probably will be.
Yes,
but no hurry for the across the pond game this week with a 1 p.m. kickoff.
Rams coming off of a blowout of Atlanta, so now they
unsurprising blowout.
They're back over 500. They're giving almost 2 touchdowns. 13.5 was the last number I saw there. Adam Kieft.
You know what? I'm taking the Bengals to cover this one.
Not to win the game.
Not to win the game. I'm taking them to cover, though. We're going across the pond. Yep, we're going across the pond. I got the Bengals to cover this one. I just something about playing in Europe. Some of the games are exciting. Some of them are snoozers. I have a feeling this one's going to be a little bit more of a snoozer. Now we know Mike Brown probably hasn't even left yet. I'm sure the Rams have been there all week. I think Mike Brown probably leaving sometime early Saturday morning for a Sunday kickoff in London. No, my guess is they're practicing at home today, and they're getting on the plane tonight to go to London for a Sunday game.
That would make sense. Leave tonight and arrive there at 4 in the morning.
4 in the morning, and then he's only got to pay for 1.5 nights in a hotel for the team. But,
it is Zach Taylor versus Sean McVay.
It's Zach Taylor versus Sean McVay, little protege action. But I think the Rams win it. I just, for some reason.
Elderboy's saying you're a little under the influence there, because he's saying the Bengals actually left yesterday.
Oh, they did. Well, I didn't know. I just was assuming based on Mike Brown's history that they hadn't left yet. Good for them. Good for Mike Brown for getting there a little early. Most teams take the whole week in London to get adjusted to the time change. Mike Brown's taking 3 days, but that's okay. Anyway, I for some reason I feel like the Bengals are going to cover this one. I think this is going to be a little bit of a snoozer London game, and the Bengals are somehow going to keep this game within 2 touchdowns.
Nope. LA 38-13.
Yeah,
and not only that, I think coming back, Jim Turner, the Bengals offensive line coach, is told to get packing.
Really?
We've talked about this before.
Their offensive line is atrocious.
The Bengals, they're averaging just 56 yards per game on the ground, and you look at it. The thing that gets me is, yes, their offensive line is bad, But last year it was just as bad with the same number of guys, the same guys.
Maybe should have never fired Paul Alexander.
And last year Joe Mixon led the AFC in rushing. Despite how bad the offensive line was, he led the AFC in rushing, and this year he's averaging like 40 yards a game.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind too, though, is that AJ Green again not healthy, and
that certainly does play a factor.
It plays a factor into your run game when you don't have a down the field threat. Their play action hasn't looked good. Cordy Glenn is never going to play for the Bengals apparently.
He practiced this week. He's practicing.
He's just suspended for this week for conduct detrimental.
So that was last week. They think he's going to get back.
Yeah, whatever.
We don't even know. I don't think they do either.
Yeah, the non-investment. Andre Smith starting games for them. Like it just
the other side of things
is not working.
The other side of things, they can't run the ball. They can't stop the run. They're giving up like 190 yards per game. That's like 15 more yards per game.
When you don't have any linebacker play, because we know their defensive line isn't terrible, but when you have no linebacker,
their linebacker play is so bad.
It's bad. Like there's so many holes for the Cincinnati Bengals right now, which again we mentioned. I don't know why they're not sellers right now when it comes to the trade deadline, because they got a lot of pieces, a lot of chips that they could be moving. But yeah, they don't look good.
Elder Boy says Bobby Hart's the future, and Bobby Hart rated out last year, according to Pro Football Focus, as the worst right tackle in football, and the Bengals gave him $21 million for 3 years.
Yeah, nothing like giving a guy like that $7 million a year. God, I wish I could have kept playing football. That could have been me. I could have been the worst right tackle in football. I could have done that.
How many regular season snaps did you get in your career?
0.
You probably were probably graded higher than Bobby Hart.
Yeah, I still could have been the worst right tackle in the league.
Correct. So there you go. Adam actually thinks the Bengals will cover against the Rams out in LA. I don't think they have a
bold prediction. I like doing some bold predictions from time to time,
especially the way Dalton finished the game against Jacksonville. True. And now you're going to ask him to. Now you're going to ask Tyler Boyd or whomever else to try and get open against Jalen Ramsey. Forget it.
Congratulations, Bengals fans. Now that I picked that, they'll probably lose by 50. But I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Second edition of
Will They Cover?
Miami on the road. I think Fitzmagic is starting. We don't even know. I'm not even sure.
Nobody's really sure what's happening in Miami.
I don't even know if Brian Flores knows.
They're trying to get to 0-16. That's all we know.
Yeah, they're open. They're on the road to Pittsburgh. Another doozy of a Monday night game there. I'm sure ESPN's really regretting the decision to give Pittsburgh 2 Monday night home games in a span of 4 weeks against Miami and Cincinnati.
The schedule makers probably are kicking themselves a little bit. The Monday night schedule this year has not been very good.
Pittsburgh favored by 14 to 15 points. I think they cover. I think this is another terrible football game, and because of that, because I like to give scores here on Fumblegate, I say Pittsburgh wins 24-8.
I don't have a score, but I
know you don't.
I know that Pittsburgh wins this one and they cover, and
there you go.
The Dolphins continue their trek down the rabbit hole, attempting to be 0-16.
Again, at least they're basically showing that that's what they're doing.
Yeah, there's no secrets surrounding them. They are severe tank mode. Now, here's the proposition, and we bring it up every week. Are we getting closer to an 0-14 versus 0-14 in week 16/15, depending on how you look at the schedule?
Cincinnati and Miami,
can we get there?
I think they can easily get there. I'm not. Who knows if they will? Because you just never know with the game of football. You could have just one day, Fitzmagic throws for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. Yep. Or, Andy Dalton throws for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, especially if they believe A.J. Green's on the mend.
If A.J. Green maybe gets healthy,
and of course, Green is probably going to sit out this week to make sure he's healthy because the trade deadline is Tuesday in case they decide they want to move him.
Yep, that's probably the move, by the way. Bengals front office, if you're listening, that's probably the move. Deal A.J. Green.
There you go.
You know you're not listening, and even if you were, you wouldn't follow my advice.
You'll get him back, maybe John Ross feels like playing again after he got another boo-boo. I'm kidding. It's a pretty serious shoulder injury, but they think he can come back. So if you get those guys back, you still, there's pieces that are there to possibly win a football game.
Yeah, they got a chance. I think the Dolphins might have a little bit better chance. They got the Jets twice. They got the Giants still. They got the Browns, who appear kind of hapless right now, and we know Baker Mayfield's a turnover machine.
He is.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see. But so a friend of mine, I was talking to him, Kevin Glazer. We were talking at the gym the other day. Our children are the same age, so we've known each other for a couple years now. Big Bengals fan, huge Bengals fan, by the way. Season ticket holder.
Did he use the word "we"?
Huh?
Does he use the word "we"?
No, he doesn't. But he's a tailgate guy. He's got. You know, he used to have the bus. The bus got too many leaks in it, and he had to retire it. He's looking for a new tailgate bus. But by the way, Bengals front office finally deciding to try and put something into the pregame experience. He said there was representatives from the Bengals out in the tailgate lots.
Yeah.
They're starting to overlook some of the rules, allowing bigger trailers, allowing more people.
They said they're trying to improve the fan experience.
They're trying to improve the fan experience. They were passing out some swag. His son got a free T-shirt and a football for catching a pass and stuff. And
there you go.
It was pretty cool. So the Bengals are slightly about 10 years too late trying to improve their fan experience
as attendance is dwindling. Oh, by the way, I saw, speaking of Bengals attendance too, their percentage of seats sold to compared to capacity is 71%.
Sold?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
astonishing.
That is 15% lower than any other team in the league. The next closest,
even the Dolphins?
Yes.
Wow.
The next closest team is Tampa Bay with 86%.
Wow.
Miami's somewhere in that range.
I would say Miami's got to be near
now,
there.
Total attendance numbers, the LA Chargers are a mile behind everybody because they played a soccer stadium and only seats 30,000 people.
Yeah, so they're filling up 30,000 seats.
Compared to what capacity is, they're only selling 7 out of every 10 seats.
Yeah, and we know
and it drops every week.
And we know they're all walking through the door.
And it's continuing to drop every week. So they're terrible, and they continue to be terrible. Both teams are.
So my friend Kevin, he made a deal with his son that if that is an 0-14 versus 0-14 matchup, that he and his son get to go to Miami to go to that game. So I'm rooting for that just for the mere fact that he and my little buddy Adam. It's his son's name. They get a chance to go to Miami if that is a true 0-14 versus 0-14 matchup. We know seats will be cheap. The plane tickets will be expensive, but we know the seats will be cheap for that one.
Yeah,
you can probably get into that game for about $5 a ticket and sit anywhere you want.
My mom and dad actually consider going down to the Bengals game this past Sunday against Jacksonville only because they found seats online at the 40-yard line for $30 each.
Yeah. Oh, the other. Well,
I told them they should have gone.
Yeah, we know Florida. You can find tickets for cheap in Florida.
That's right.
A few weeks ago, the cheapest ticket in town was the Dolphins game. A regular season Dolphins game ticket was cheaper than a preseason Miami Heat ticket. So Dolphins having a little trouble getting people in the stadium.
Regular analytics asking about the Chargers going forward now is that they're 2-5, struggling to make the playoffs. They've been had a rash of injuries. Yeah. And I don't know that we've ever seen them at full strength this season. What are they looking at as far as free agent needs or prospects? I think they need help. They need to give Phillip Rivers another weapon to throw the ball to.
How much longer does he have, though?
I don't know.
He's getting up there. Now, we know quarterbacks may be playing to their 50 now.
There's no hint of him
slow down.
Same with Rivers. There's no hint of him slowing down.
He gets hit more than Tom Brady, though. That's what makes me a little nervous.
And that's why address that.
And how much longer is he going to play for a mediocre team if they're not competing for AFC championships? We know Tom Brady's going to continue to play because he's going to continue to play for Super Bowls. If there's not that opportunity for Phillip Rivers, is he willing to put his body on the line for a non-Super Bowl contender? Yeah. Now, we think that they can, and obviously this year with the rash of injuries makes it more difficult. I think they're a little better than their record indicates, but with guys being hurt, it makes it difficult on them.
Yeah, I think he needs another weapon. He could use some help on the offensive line. I think they could use help at cornerback. Derwin James is, when healthy, he's a top end. He's one of the better safeties, I think, in the league. He's also been banged up. So again, they need some help in some places. Yes, you're not 2-5 for no reason. There's no they're the best 2-5 team. There's no such thing as that. So, but they're not far off in a division that outside of Kansas City continues to just kind of meander around 500. You're not out of the playoffs yet. Now they have to get it going in a hurry, and they have some really tough games going forward. They got Chicago coming up. Chicago can't score. We've already talked about Green Bay. Oakland's a little improved this season. They've kind of been up and down, and also they've got to run through the rest of the division. Denver. We know with Denver they can't score. Jacksonville
just trade away Emmanuel Sanders, their best offensive.
Just trade him away. So some wins are there. It's not going to be easy. But they're going to have to start turning it around as soon. He talked about Miami. Miami has 3 first-round picks. They need everything.
Yeah.
So
Miami needs all of it.
And maybe one of the things they consider thinking about addressing is the kicker. in the offseason, and because a lot of people could use kickers.
Everybody needs a kicker.
Absolutely.
There's plenty of them in the draft every year.
And there's plenty of them here once again on the this edition of the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week.
Yeah, we got a lot of them this week, so we'll go through them quick because we've had a long show already today. We haven't even got to college football. Amherst, Connor Kelly misses from 24 and 26. Both of them trained monkey range. I shouldn't have started off with this one because this is a really good one. Both of them within trained monkey range. The second one at the end of a 90-yard, 10-minute, 29-second drive. They end up losing to Hamilton 31-28. 2 trained monkey range field goals, lose by 3. Pittsburgh State Gorillas, Jared Vincent misses from 38 with a minute 3 left. They lose to Fort Hays State 42-41. 1-point game, missed a 3-point, not good. Missouri Science and Tech, previous appearance on the show. Ben Styron misses from 44. They lose to Truman State 41-39. West Texas A&M, Mauricio Gonzalez misses from 31 in the 4th. So they put in a backup kicker, Aaron Koch. I always love backup kickers. It's always a great move. So, predictably, Aaron Koch gets a trained monkey range field goal, 22-yarder, with 15 seconds left. He misses that one. They lose to Angelo State 17-14. Austin P.
Let's go P.
There it is. Didn't want to miss that one. Logan Birchfield misses from 34 and 32 within the last 6 minutes of the game. They lose to a 1-6 Tennessee State team, 26-24. Richmond Spiders, Jake Larson misses from 38 and 44. They lose to Yale by 1, 28-27. Northwestern State's Ryan Gramillion misses from 34. They lose to Central Arkansas, 31-30.
And before we get to the winner of the week, I have to mention Elder Boy was right. One of the Aguayo family boys missed for Florida State.
Yeah.
And they lost to Wake Forest 22-20.
Yeah. Sorry, Elder Boy, I missed that one, but we had to have, always a good to see the Aguayo appearance.
And then there was another one where there was an overtime game.
Oh, I didn't miss it. I got it.
Oh, you did have it on there.
Yeah,
okay,
I was trying to get it back into order because this one's not a winner, but it's on here.
But then there was the other one.
Ashland Satchel Denton misses from 38 in the second, 33 in overtime, and then the extra point in the second overtime. They lose to Wayne State 42-41. Again, a game winner in the first overtime. Obviously, the one in regulation would have won it. The game winner in overtime, he misses that one. They go to the second overtime, misses the extra point. They end up losing 42-41 to Wayne State. Michigan schools, what can you do? But this week's winner of the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week is Kansas's Liam Jones. He missed from 46. He got blocked from 37. Also had an extra point blocked. That gets returned for a 2-point conversion, which I was actually on the field for one time in college. It's kind of fun. Return for 2 points. I was on the field goal block team, not on the field goal team. We returned to block extra point. They end up losing to Texas. Now, Les Miles has got a shot to get a fairly signature win over Texas, but they end up losing by 2, 50-48. Similar situation. They went for 2 to take the lead. Texas goes down and kicks the field goal to win it, but if he would have made the one from 46, not gotten the one blocked from 37, or not had the extra point blocked in return for 2 points, that's the old 3-point swing there, folks. They would have won the game without having to even have Texas an opportunity to win the game at the end there. For that reason, Kansas's Liam Jones, you are this week's winner of the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week.
Boy,
so many good ones.
You love I love the call of Les Miles to go for 2 there late,
it's
late
genius.
with a minute to go, and Texas's
football.
Defense continues to be rancid because they just ran a simple crossing pattern with 2 receivers, and one that caught the 2-point conversion was standing all alone in the end zone.
Oh, it's great.
And then Dicker the kicker wins it for Texas.
Dicker the kicker.
But there you go.
Great kicker nickname.
But there you go. You miss one, you get one blocked, and then as Adam said, a 3-point swing on a blocked extra point. So. There you go. And Les Miles may have just lost $1 million because of, as we said, in Les Miles' contract, if he gets to 6 wins, gets bowl eligible, he gets $1 million bonus. But again, there's not enough money to go around, kids.
Yep, not enough. Sorry, can't pay the players. We can pay the coaches.
Absolutely. Let's move into the college portion of our show today. And our old buddy Jim Harbaugh is back.
Oh, we can't miss out on talking about Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines.
Absolutely.
Can't do it.
Absolutely. And actually, we're going to talk about them twice. But first,
I love
we're going to talk about the team a little bit later. But first, right now, let's talk about Harbaugh. There was a report put out, and I believe the place I read was footballscoop.com. That's a great website for anything football-wise.
Usually pretty accurate. This isn't necessarily a gossip website. They usually have some pretty accurate information.
Yeah, they've got sources. And one of the report floating out there is that with all the pressure that's starting to build at Michigan because they continue to flop under Harbaugh, and they're 1-10 now against ranked teams since he's been there.
Unsurprisingly so.
Unsurprisingly so. It looks.
Who saw that coming?
Everybody.
Well, everybody here at Fumblegate.
That's right. So now there's rumors out there swirling now that Jim Harbaugh is possibly looking for a way out and looking for a return back to the NFL.
Yeah.
He has come out and sent a statement to a bunch of parents of current players, I think parents of recruits, future potential recruits.
Yep, little mitigating damage
And
here.
the only two words I remember in the thing is he was basically saying the report is, quote, total crap, end quote.
Yeah. Mitigating damage.
Is the report total crap, or is Jim Harbaugh full of crap saying he's not leaving?
I don't know. You know what? I don't know, because I feel like the Michigan job is his in perpetuity, and we've talked about this before. He can have this job probably as long as he wants, as long as he wins 8 games a season.
Regular analytics says tell him to go coach Atlanta.
Well, we've talked about it already. Like, there's going to be jobs open, and if Atlanta's the first one to fire, then they have their choice of coaches. I don't know. I don't know how much truth in this rumor there is. I don't know if the pressure of Michigan's getting to him a little bit. Again, I think he has this job in perpetuity if he wants it, because I think Michigan's front office has resigned themselves to being a second-tier program. Because if they were going to make the move, I feel like they would have made it already. The guy can't beat Ohio State. He can't beat a ranked team. He's not pressing for Big Ten championships. So what's the ultimate goal out of Jim Harbaugh? How much time are you going to give him to do one of those things? And I don't know the answer, because it doesn't appear that Michigan's moving on him. So at this point, the decision becomes whether or not he wants to leave. And the rumor about him going back to the NFL is a valid one, because I can see it, because he had success obviously in the NFL for quite some time. Was closer to competing for championships in the NFL than he is in college.
Got to the Super Bowl.
I don't know. I don't know where to take this. I really don't, because it wouldn't surprise me either way. Again, I think he can stay at Michigan. I think he doesn't have, his job's not in jeopardy. Now, if they tank down the stretch and get blown out in their bowl game, maybe his job's in jeopardy. But it wouldn't surprise me if he stays, and it doesn't surprise me if he leaves. This is one of those ones where I saw the rumor, and you posed the question, and I'm like, I don't know where else to go with it. I don't know where he's going to end up.
Just real quickly to Brian Sullivan in the chat, Harbaugh's had his recruits there for several years.
No, I agree. I agree. He's had his recruits, and we've talked about this before. He can't find a quarterback. With the transfer portal and his recruiting, he cannot find a quarterback that's going to be successful. We all know, and we've said this since they got Shea Patterson in the transfer portal, that he was not going to be the answer. Turns out we were right. Us at Fumblegate were no dummies when it comes to some stuff. We knew Shea Patterson wasn't going to blow up the world by playing at Michigan under Jim Harbaugh. The McCaffrey kid can't appear to stay healthy. Now, that's not a knock on Jim Harbaugh, but if he's the next guy, he can't stay healthy.
Go back to the previous ones we've talked about before. Wilton Spate, John O'Corn.
Yeah,
there's other ones I forget.
He's not there because they're all forgettable. It's not easy to remember the list of mediocre quarterbacks that come through Michigan with a guy who's supposedly a quarterback guru. Now, again, it's one of those things that how much time are you going to give him? And I like this. I saw an article with Joe Klatt. He was on Fox Sports. Came to his defense, and this is one thing where I agree. With this sentiment, and here's what it is. Is it unfair to put Jim Harbaugh at a higher standard because of the other coaches around college football that are successful, given that Michigan is a second-tier program? Is it
no, because Michigan wants to be. Michigan sees
wants
itself.
To be, but is it unfair to compare him to Dabo Swinney, to Urban Meyer?
No, because Jim Harbaugh has put himself and the program's expectations at that level.
I agree, but I'm saying there's some validity to that statement where he averages more wins per season than Lloyd Carr and Bo Schembechler did. So what's the standard of Michigan football? He's getting more wins than his two previous predecessors, but he's not competing for Big Ten championships. So what's the expectation? Again,
that's the problem.
With Michigan being a second-tier program, I think they've resigned themselves to being an 8-win program. And there's nowhere to go from here, you just resign yourself to being an 8-win program.
That's the problem, though, is that Lloyd Carr was competing for Big Ten championships. Bo Schembechler was competing for Big Ten.
And they were beating Michigan.
And they were beating Ohio State. Lloyd Carr won a national championship. Bo Schembechler never did, but he got there closer than Harbaugh. And so because those guys have set the standard for what Michigan football believes it is, it's Big Ten championships, it's beating Ohio State, and it's in the conversation for national championships.
I agree. But
so
it's not going to happen anytime soon.
That's fine. If you want to sit there and say, if you want to spin things, and that's the way Joel Klatt's going to do because he works for Fox Sports and they own 50% of the Big Ten network, he's going to be a Big Ten shill. I get it. I totally understand it. So he's got to make the defense of Jim Harbaugh. But when you, especially with Harbaugh continuing to put himself and this program out there by shooting his mouth off the way he does, seemingly all the time, he has put the target on his own back, and he has not delivered with what they thought he was going to be when everybody thought at Michigan thought it was a huge coup to steal him from the 49ers, to have him leave NFL to come home to Michigan.
He's the savior of Michigan football.
Save the program after Rich Rod and Brady Hoke sent that big plane heading nose down towards the ground.
Yeah,
and he's leveled it off, but he's leveled it off at, they're a second-tier team. They are a full step behind, maybe a step and a half or 2 steps behind Ohio State every year. Ohio State laps them in recruiting every single year, and the results show that on the field. So if you want to play the wins game, that's fine.
Yeah.
But as you've said before here on the show, you can win 9 or 10 games, that's fine. But if you're not going to be taken as a serious contender, if you're happy with that, good for you. I'm a Kentucky alum. I'd be thrilled with 9 or 10 wins every year and never competing for an SEC championship.
But again,
and by the way, Jim Harbaugh at some point or another, maybe not this year, he will leave for the NFL.
Yeah, he will go
100%.
But
this was never the end game.
He's an 8-win program, and if he wins 10, that's great. But you're never going to compete for national championships with Jim Harbaugh or anybody else as your coach for that matter. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. What coach is going to put you in national championship contention at Michigan? Because for everything they seem to have on their side, they can't seem to get it right on the field. So
Jimmy James says they were really good before the invention of color TV.
Yeah, Jimmy James is right about that one.
Excellent point,
Michigan fans love to talk about all the national championships that happened well before their grandparents were born, but they got a number of them. The problem is they were all before color TV.
They were winning titles, beating Army 7-6 every year.
Yep.
So let's move on and to another guy who is. Will we see him make a move?
Well, he'll be back in college football soon. We're going to talk about that.
Urban Meyer is our next topic of conversation. The long-held belief by a lot of people, not including us here at Fumblegate, is he's heading west once this season's over. And yes, Brian, it's never a good time to say you're an Irish fan, and we'll talk about that. We're actually going to talk about that here in a little bit, so thank you for bringing that up. But we've long believed that Urban Meyer is destined for USC once they fire Clay Helton, and
appears to be inevitable at this point. USC is not looking good.
Now there's other rumors and discussion out there that Florida State is starting to make the rounds and starting to contact donors and say, "Can you help us? Let's help us get rid of Willie Taggart, buy out his contract." And the dream scenarios reportedly. Now, their administration has come out denying this, and Adam has a quote to that point, and I'll let him read it here in just a second, that they are going to make a serious run at Urban Meyer once the season is over, once they fire Willie Taggart, unless for some unknown reason they run the table the rest of the year and save Willie Taggart's job, which isn't going to happen.
Probably what they're going to have to do to save his job.
And it's not going to happen. No. So would it be a smart move for Florida State to go after Urban Meyer?
Well, of course it's a smart move. I think it's smart for anybody to go after Urban Meyer because he's proven that he can win. At every stop he's been at, he's won. Of course, it's a smart move. Now, is it a logical move? I don't know. I don't know where this goes. I don't. Let me read the quote, and then we'll talk about the options for Florida State getting rid of Taggart and if they could bring in Coach Meyer anyway. So this is a quote from David Coburn, who's the FSU AD. His quote is, "If Coach." Being Coach Taggart, if Coach were to be hit by a bus tomorrow, we would not target Coach Meyer, period. I say that with all due respect to Coach Meyer, but we wouldn't even target Steve Spurrier either. Now, to me, that's a very strong analogy to basically say I'm not interested in Urban Meyer, which I believe is 100% a fallacy, by the way. if Urban Meyer were to say, I want to coach at Florida State, you would be beating down the door to get him to come in. But
Brian brings up a great point in the chat.
no, I know that is a good point. And the other thing I was going to point out about
Jimmy James, I mean, internet brings up a point is Urban to the Cowboys. Apparently, he's also intimated he would be interested in the Cowboys job. I'd be surprised.
I don't know if he's an NFL guy. I don't think that the NFL would buy into his system. It's similar to a Brian Kelly. I don't know if you get a guy like that to be successful in the NFL.
Brian is judging his next job on the number of arresto meter.
Well, so Brian, to your point, we know that Urban Meyer has a number of female acquaintances already in the state of Florida that he could be intriguing to him, because we know, for those of you who follow the show and follow college football, we know one reason that Urban Meyer left Florida was because of his female acquaintances. So we know he has a few in the probably in the Tallahassee region. So that does make it intriguing for Urban Meyer. Now, here's the problem with FSU and the situation they put themselves in, because they gave Willie Taggart a pretty hefty contract with a pretty hefty buyout. He has an 85% clause in his buyout that he is owed 85% of his contract regardless of whether he's coaching there or not, which means if they were to fire him after this season, they owe him $17 million.
Can they put him on the Charlie Weiss payment plan?
That they're going to have to, because if you're getting rid of a guy that you still owe $17 million, you're going to need that donor. Hey, can you help us fund this? They're going to need it, because $17 million is no joke. And we've talked about coaches' buyouts before. $1 million, $2 million. Those kind of checks get written overnight.
Like Luke Fickell.
Yeah, no problem. Like whoever buys out, wherever Luke Fickell ends up, the school that picks him up will cut that check.
Yeah.
No questions asked. But $17 million makes you hesitate a little bit. That's a big chunk.
It does.
And that's another reason that I feel like maybe Willie Taggart has more time than he deserves because of the contract they wrote him. That's way too much money. They gave him way too much money, and we talked about it at the time. He's not even been that great of a coach at every stop.
He had a couple of good years at South Florida, and that was it.
Yeah, and then he translated to Oregon, and he wasn't good at Oregon.
He was at Oregon for 1 year.
And he wasn't good. Like, he's 55-61 overall. He's 8-11 at Florida State. And if you fire him, you owe him $17 million.
I think
now, if you get Urban Meyer to walk through that door when he walks out, maybe $17 million is worth the investment. But that's a hefty buyout for a guy that, if you're not guaranteeing a guy who's going to compete for national championships walking in the door, paying that guy $17 million is tough.
I think, to me, I don't necessarily know that it's a smart move for Florida State to go after Urban Meyer. I mean, obviously, he'll have that thing turned around in no time flat if they were to make the move. I think, to me, it would be more of a desperate move for Urban Meyer, because this is another program in Florida State. They're coming off of 5 years ago winning a national championship with Punchface, and when he left, things started to head south, and then thus Jimbo Fisher went hightail into College Station because they paid him $75 million for 10 years.
Yeah, Jimbo Fisher.
But again, it wasn't about the money.
Nope. They couldn't afford it. Sorry, kids.
I think it would be more of a desperate ploy by Florida State, and desperate people will do desperate things. And if that's the case, if they're really interested, that $17 million will appear very quickly.
Yeah, and if they want to do it, they'll find the money.
You're going to have to come up with probably quadruple that, if not 5 times that amount, to get Urban Meyer to go down there.
If you want Urban Meyer, you're going to be looking at a similar situation to what Jimbo Fisher got paid. You're going to be looking at $7+ million per year.
I think he's going to command closer to $10 million a year.
I should have looked it up. What was he getting the last years at Ohio State?
He was up near the top, right? 7 or 8 million.
He was up there in the range.
And if I was
Dabo Sweeney's the current highest paid, right? And
correct.
He's making 7.9.
He's up over 9.
Oh, is he over 9?
All incentives included. If I was Urban Meyer, I would be telling Florida State my bargain basement is $11 million. Why not?
Well, yeah.
And if Florida State's a desperate program, they'll pay it. Now, as you talked about with some possibilities going forward, and some more realistic possibilities for Florida State. The one that jumps out to me, and it hurts me to say this, is Mark Stoops. Yep. He was a defensive coordinator there on that national championship team. He knows the area. He has a lot of recruiting ties down in Florida, and he has proven at Kentucky to be a very good recruiter. And that was his prowess coming into Kentucky. The man can recruit. And that's why I believe it makes sense down there is he can start to recruit these kids from Florida, keep them in Florida, and get them to Tallahassee. I think that would make more sense for Florida State. And obviously, if Florida State really wants him, they can afford to pay him, and Kentucky won't match it. Kentucky can come up the money if they want to. They've made a commitment the last number of years to football.
They have,
but at the end of the day,
it's a basketball school.
Exactly. At the end of the day,
their athletic budget is built around the basketball school.
Let's move to the Big Ten, and maybe Wisconsin just screwing everything up for the Big Ten. Save Ohio State losing to Illinois. I don't care that it was on the road. It's a terrible loss because
it's a 100% terrible loss because Illinois is trash. We talked about Lovie Smith possibly losing his job after losing that game. Well, guess what? He probably saved his job by winning that game.
Probably just got another extension.
Yeah, well, we know Illinois is not a football. Well, what are they? A school? They're not in anything school right now. But
no, they're not.
They're certainly not a football school.
They would probably claim themselves to be a football school.
Yeah,
just because they're in the Big Ten. Because there are no outside of maybe Michigan State, there are no basketball schools in the Big. Oh, Indiana. Hello. Yeah. But that's another thing. Does this wipe them out for the playoff?
So before that game, there was a chance. They said I believe it was a 28% chance that the Big Ten got two teams into the college football playoff, assuming Wisconsin and Ohio State. It doesn't necessarily wipe the table, and I'm going to go through the scenarios here in a second. I think it makes it infinitely harder for anyone but Ohio State, but it doesn't wipe the table.
Does it wipe the table for Wisconsin? Because I think it does, because this is similar to Georgia losing to South Carolina.
I think it does, save the fact that their schedule the rest of the way shapes up for them pretty good because they're playing Ohio State this week. Excuse me. They have a ranked Iowa team and a currently undefeated Minnesota team. Now, I don't think they'll be undefeated when they get there, but it puts them back in the Big Ten championship game where they would probably face Wisconsin or Penn State in the Big Ten. Ohio State or Penn State in the Big Ten championship game, which will probably be a top 10 ranked team at that time. So they have the potential for 4 more ranked wins down the stretch, which I think puts them back into the national championship conversation. The Big Ten champion, 1 loss, 4 ranked wins down the stretch. They've annihilated a Michigan team who probably may not end the season ranked, but at the time they were ranked. So stuff that looks better. They had a good defense. Now, to be fair, their defense didn't play all that bad against Illinois. Their offense, for some reason, just could not get it started. Their run game didn't look good. Jonathan Taylor didn't look good.
They just couldn't put the ball in the end zone.
They couldn't do it. It just something about that game was just quite the anomaly for a game that we thought Wisconsin was going to run over them, and probably should have, and just didn't play well. I certainly the Big Ten still controls their own destiny. I think at this point a 1-loss team still looks okay. Obviously, an undefeated Ohio State team isn't guaranteed, but a one loss team probably can still get in. It depends on how the SEC shakes out. If the SEC ends up with a undefeated team and a 1-loss team, or perhaps 2 1-loss teams, then there becomes more of a debate. But if we assume Oklahoma goes undefeated and we assume Clemson goes undefeated and the SEC has an undefeated champion, then there's only room for 1 left, obviously. And we mentioned Notre Dame is not going to have a good down the stretch run here because their last ranked game is this week against Michigan. So it becomes a battle of 1-loss teams if Ohio State is not undefeated. And it just depends on who has the better resume. And like we mentioned before, a loss to Illinois is a glaring mistake on your resume when it comes down to it, because Illinois is not going to make a bowl game. They're probably going to finish somewhere in the range of 4-8, maybe 5-7. It's not a good look for Wisconsin or the Big Ten in general. But again, if Ohio State handles business and they win out, then it takes all the questions off the table, because I think Ohio State is into the college football playoff guaranteed with an undefeated season.
I think it knocks out Wisconsin, say, unless they can beat Ohio State twice, and the first game in the regular season is at the Horseshoe.
Well, they have to win out. 100%.
They have to win out. Then you probably may end up playing Ohio State again. The other factor in there is Penn State, and they're playing well, but they've got a tough one this week. Penn State does. They're at Sparty this week, and we know Sparty's
defense can play.
We know their defense can play. We know Mark D'Antonio, they can't score, and they never have since he's been there. Even when they had Kurt or Kirk Cousins, whichever one he wants to go by.
Yeah, Penn State has the toughest road left. I think being the undefeated team, they have the toughest road left.
That's the biggest one now that stands in the way of Ohio State. not making the playoff to me. I think
I think the toughest one that stands in their way is Penn State. They have the toughest road. Again, they're playing at Michigan State this week. They coming off their bye. They play at Minnesota. Again, all their difficult games down the stretch are away, which makes it very difficult for Penn State. They're playing at Minnesota. For some reason, they're rowing the boat there in Minnesota. Now, it's going to be interesting to see how Minnesota plays out, and I'll go through their scenarios here in a second. Home for Indiana, which obviously is a win for them.
So they'll go to 8-0.
And then they play at Ohio State, second to last week of the season, and then they're home for Rutgers. But again, Penn State wins out. They're probably in the college football playoff because, again, the ranked wins and beating Ohio State, who's going to be a top 3 team when they get there, likely, depending on the Wisconsin game this week. And then the other one, I hate to do it because I'm not a huge fan. Well, I don't dislike PJ Fleck. Obviously, the story with the Casey O'Brien, the holder, 4-time cancer survivor, one of the coolest things about college football. Good on you for PJ Fleck, Minnesota Golden Gophers, rowing the boat and putting the 4-time cancer survivor in the game this last weekend. Held for an extra point. You saw post-game interview with the kid, how much it meant to him and his family and everything that he's been through. That was a truly, truly awesome moment. Let's not sleep on them because let's look at their schedule down the stretch. It's not that hard when you look at it, depending on how the other games play out. They're playing at home this weekend for Maryland.
Okay, so that's a win. They'll be 8-0.
That's a win. They're coming off a bye to play Penn State at home. So they get 2 weeks to prepare, and they're playing them at home. That's going to be, I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult of a game than people suspect because I think Minnesota with 2 weeks to prepare, Penn State, as much as beating Michigan looks okay, they didn't look great in that game, and Michigan put up a boatload of yards. They just couldn't find the end zone.
Okay,
and
so
they had an opportunity at the end of the game.
So let's say Minnesota wins that when they go to 9-0.
They go to 9-0. They're at Iowa.
That's going to be tough. Iowa always plays well at home.
Iowa plays well at home. At Northwestern, which you have to figure is going to be a W, and then they finish at home against Wisconsin. But again, at home against Wisconsin. Their 2 most difficult games left are at home, and one of them being Penn State coming off of a bye. So Minnesota, as much as it's kind of weird to talk about this, they have an opportunity to be undefeated to go into the Big Ten championship game against Ohio State or Penn State, depending on how the Ohio State-Penn State game could possibly play out.
Well,
Obviously, Wisconsin makes a difference.
That's it. Minnesota would have to be 13-0 to have any
sniff of the playoff. But they would have to be 13-0, but it does throw a monkey wrench. And again, the toughest games they have left, one of them, Penn State coming off a bye, who was statistically beaten by Michigan. Obviously not on the scoreboard, but Michigan beat them statistically. And we know Michigan isn't that great. And then Wisconsin at the end of the season, we'll see how it shapes up. But there's a opportunity there for Wisconsin or for Minnesota. I'm not saying that's a good opportunity.
It makes it fun because it's somebody new because Minnesota's never a threat. So that makes it more fun.
It is more fun.
Let's move into our picks and let's stick with the Big Ten. One we thought was going to be the marquee matchup of the weekend. Now not so much. Wisconsin is at Ohio State this coming Saturday. It's a noon kickoff, so plan accordingly if you want to strap in and watch this one now.
Well, the schedule for this week is pretty good. If you're a college football fan, you can sit down in front of the TV because all the big games are not overlapping each other, which is kind of fun.
That's correct there. So Wisconsin at Ohio State. I have Ohio State winning this one all day long. I have Ohio State winning this one 34-14. Wisconsin just has left a really, really vile taste in my mouth after losing to Illinois. And now you're going to ask them to go into the horseshoe and try and win. I think this can be a game where Ohio State, as I said, I have Ohio State winning by 20, but I think this could also be a game where Ohio State pulls away late. Wisconsin obviously has a good enough running game that they'll take a couple, maybe 2 or 3 possessions away that Justin Fields would normally have.
They can control the clock with
they'll control the clock some, but I don't see their defense having the schematics, the talent, or the speed to keep up with Ohio State to keep them in check. And that's why I think Ohio State wins comfortably.
Wisconsin's defense was good against bad teams. Now they're facing a really, really prolific offense in Ohio State. I think that makes it very difficult for them. Like you said, they're going to take possessions away by controlling the clock. The problem is that they're probably going to be playing from behind, and I don't trust their pass game for anything. I got Ohio State winning this one. I think this ends Wisconsin's chance at the college football playoff completely. Also puts them in jeopardy of playing in the Big Ten championship game because this would give Minnesota a 2-game lead going towards the end of the season with obviously only 1 game against each other to play. Again, like I mentioned, Minnesota's road isn't easy, but it gives them a 2-game lead on Wisconsin going down the stretch. So the game at the end of the season may not even make a difference for Minnesota. They may be able to lose that one and still play in the Big Ten championship game.
Let's move to the SEC in a mid-afternoon kick. This time, Auburn heading to LSU, a Tiger fight down in Death Valley. That's fun. And the reason why it's a Saturday afternoon game because CBS, also known as the Alabama Network, put a random Alabama game on at night earlier in the year. So this game had to go in the middle of the afternoon. It should be a primetime game. It's not. But
stupid.
In either case, LSU, obviously everybody's looking down the pike and seeing a potential 1 versus 2 Alabama LSU showdown. Of course, Tua Tagovailoa had ankle surgery this week, but they're on a bye after last Saturday. But they're on a bye this week. They're playing Arkansas, so it's basically a bye week for Alabama. But LSU at home against Auburn. I like LSU here all day long. Joe Burrow has already set the record for passing touchdowns at LSU in just 7 games. Nobody's been able to figure out how to slow them down. Auburn has a terrific defensive line, and I think they're going to have to cause some havoc. They're going to have to create a couple of turnovers, maybe even 3 turnovers to stay in this one. This is going to be the most difficult environment Bo Nix has played in.
Yep.
For
True
Auburn,
he
played okay at Florida a couple of weeks ago when they lost there, but I'm rolling LSU here. I have LSU winning comfortably. I have them winning 38-20.
I think LSU does win this one comfortably. I think the environment gets the true freshman Nix. Just Joe Burrow's playing really well. No one has seemed to been able to find an answer to LSU's offense. Both obviously coming off big wins last week, but it just big point wins, not big marquee wins, but big point wins last week. Yeah, I got LSU win this one. This one would be a lot more fun as a primetime game. Unfortunately, like you mentioned, CBS's schedulers made a mistake with this one. We're playing an afternoon game, but afternoon at LSU, it's going to be a rowdy one. I think the environment gets to Auburn a little bit, especially their true freshman quarterback. I think LSU wins this one pretty comfortably.
We've seen late the last few years, Gus Malzahn's teams in a lot of situations like this don't tend to play very well for whatever the reason.
Yeah, LSU's giving 11. How about this one, though? This one surprised me when I took a peek at it. Over-under on this one, 58.5.
I have it 38-20, so it's right there.
Yeah,
I didn't even know.
You're right on it. I feel like that's got to be over that. I feel like LSU can get 50 of those 58 by themselves. I don't think they will, but I think the over hits on that one.
The last game here, the last marquee game that we'll talk about here coming up as well.
Is it though?
We'll give you our upset games because it's 2 ranked teams.
Is it though?
And this is so great for me because I know this game has you all kinds of conflicted all over the place.
Yeah, I'm so torn on where to go with this.
It makes it so much more fun. Notre Dame is at Michigan, and we know how this guy feels about red face. And now not being shown as red face on television. Of course, we're talking about Brian Kelly. Then everyone here that is tuned in, not only today, which we appreciate everybody tuning in today, and also the comments, knows how we feel about Jim Harbaugh. So that makes it all the more fun, Adam Kieft. I'm just going to go ahead and say Notre Dame wins this one fairly low scoring. I say 24-17. And you go ahead.
I think it is going to be fairly low scoring. Now, this is a battle of 2 of my least favorite coaches in college football. The mired in mediocrity Jim Harbaugh and just red face Brian Kelly.
Is he a punch face?
No, not necessarily.
I
don't see him and want to punch him in the face.
Now he's a University of Cincinnati Hall of Famer, though.
Yeah, University of Cincinnati Hall of Famer, which good on him, by the way, for coming back and coming to the presentation now. Probably the first time he's talked to most of those players since he walked out of their banquet on them. But players seem to be okay with it. I think the players understood. Now, 10 years removed from it, they understood a little more. But
Jimmy James says BK is a punchable face, and he also says Notre Dame is going to knock Shea out of the game.
That could happen. Notre Dame's defense doesn't suck. Michigan's offense does, despite the fact. And here's the thing: I started a little bit of a Twitter argument with some idiot Michigan fans whose Twitter handles were like "UM Big Fan 2020" and like all this crap. So there's super homers. Yeah, did Michigan outgain Penn State in that last game? Absolutely. But guess what? At the end of the day, it ended up where the game was supposed to. They couldn't finish the game down the stretch. Their offense found a way to screw it up. Jim Harbaugh found a way to screw it up. And by the way, to all you fans who are harping on the kid who dropped the touchdown, the Michigan kid that dropped the touchdown, I forget the name off the top of my head, you're an idiot. Don't ever blame the kid. The kid played his ass off. He had one bad play. And if they score more points earlier in the game, it doesn't come down to one play. So whatever. It's not the official's fault. It's Jim Harbaugh's fault. It's Michigan's fault. You're a mediocre team. Get over it. I think Notre Dame wins this one. I don't think it's ever in jeopardy. The only way that Michigan hangs around in this one, I think, is turnovers. But I think Michigan has more turnovers than Notre Dame does. Again, we've mentioned it before, and I'll mention it again. I don't trust Shea Patterson for shit. He's just not a good quarterback. As much as his brother, who's his biggest fan, wants to stand up for him, I don't trust anything that kid does. Their offense seems to finally got it figured out as far as like this new spread concept that they're working with. They seem to be putting up the yards now.
They're almost hitting their stride, damn it.
But they're almost hitting their stride, like Jim mentioned.
After they put up 3 against Iowa.
Yeah, nothing about Michigan gives me confidence still. I still think they're headed for an 8-4 season. I think this one is not good for them. I don't think it's in jeopardy. I think it could be closer. I don't think this game's ever in jeopardy for Notre Dame.
Okay, so 2 questions here. If Michigan loses, they go to 5-3. Will they still be ranked?
They probably will be because that's the way college football works. Okay. Because Michigan has to be relevant. They have to stay ranked.
So this game is on ABC. It's not on NBC, which has the contract.
You might get a little bit more Brian Kelly red face.
I was going to say, if I put the over under red face at 2.5?
You know what? I'm going under because it typically only happens when their quarterbacks like throw bad interceptions or something like that. I don't see Notre Dame turning the ball over much in this game. So Brian Kelly might keep his composure. We'll see. It's going to be interesting.
Is this a game where you're basically rooting for both teams to lose?
Is it possible?
Would it make you happy if it ended in like a scoreless tie?
Can that happen in college football? Because if it did, that'd be wonderful. I don't think it. I think Notre Dame up front is going to dominate Michigan's offensive line. We've talked about it before. Michigan's offensive line is suspect. Thank you, Sully, for throwing that in there.
We saw Michigan's offensive line get owned by Army.
Dominated by Army, dominated by Wisconsin. The same thing could very well happen here. Notre Dame up front is pretty good. They got everything they need in front of them. Unfortunately, again, Notre Dame, this is their last marquee game that they have on their schedule for what essentially becomes the college football playoff voting system. For Notre Dame's sake, I hope Michigan stays ranked because the longer they stay ranked, the better this win looks for them. Obviously, with Georgia's loss a couple weeks ago, it makes it more difficult. But
Brian Sullivan says that Brian Kelly will blow up even if they're up 24 and the ref makes a bad call.
He's not as hard on officials as he is on his own players, but I could see it. Yeah, I don't know about 2.5. 2.5 seems high, just because I feel like at this point, college football broadcasters know to kind of stay away from Brian Kelly's face when he's angry and flipping his shit. So 2.5, I would go. If there was such thing as a push at 2.5, I could go push. Like maybe they start on him and then they realize he's getting red face and they cut to a different camera. I was going to say, it's like, was it going to show like half of his face getting red? Get a profile shot. They cut to a different camera as he's getting angry, so that's only like a half of a red face. But yeah, if there were a way for both teams to lose this one somehow, I wouldn't mind it. But unfortunately, it's not going to happen. So Notre Dame wins it. Michigan loses. They're on their way to 8-4, possibly 7-5. We'll see how they do against Sparty in a couple weeks here. But yeah, sorry, Michigan fans. I know. On the books, you're an even favorite, which means you're actually not a favorite because the home team should get installed as a 3-point favorite if it was even. The Vegas books got it at even, though, but I got Notre Dame winning this one.
Upset pick of the week.
I got 2 of them. One, disrespect for my Chippewas. Chippewas getting 2.5 points.
You were pissed about this before we came on.
This is unbelievable.
You were pissed.
Chippewas at 5-3 versus Buffalo Bulls at 3-5 on the road at the University at Buffalo, not the University of Buffalo, University at Buffalo.
And the Bulls, not the Bills.
The Bulls. Chippewas getting 2.5 points on the road against the backup quarterback for Buffalo. And I should have had the stats correct, but his stats for last week were somewhere in the range of in the teens. I believe it was 16 completions to 29 attempts for a grand total of like 64 yards. And the Chippewas defense has been playing pretty well the last couple weeks. Their offense finally figured out how to play offense. Charlie Fry's got a good thing going there with their offensive coordinator, Charlie Fry, former Dark Horse Heisman candidate, by the way, for the University of Akron Zips a long time ago. But got their offense on track. Disrespectful to give the Chippewas 2.5 points in this one. I got the Chippewas winning at the University at Buffalo. The other one I got, this one's a little fun. I went rank game for you just because, you always make me feel bad for not going rank game. I got UCLA at plus 3.5 over Arizona State at Arizona State, by the way. Or no, I'm sorry, it's at UCLA. But
okay.
Arizona State coming in as 3.5-point favorite. I got them going down at the UCLA Bruins this week. Arizona State, I don't trust their offense. I like UCLA at home with Arizona State's inability to score points on offense. I got the ranked Arizona State Sun Devils going down to the UCLA Bruins this week.
Okay, yeah, that was one that I looked at as a possibility for a similar reason that don't trust Arizona State. I think we both looked at possibly Houston pulling an upset over SMU. They actually played tonight. But you looked at the stats and saw that Derek King, who hasn't played the last couple of weeks,
their leading passer.
He's still their leading passer. So that's why you don't go there. And UCLA's what, 2-5? And
UCLA's 2-5. Arizona State's 5-2.
So I'm gonna one up you a little bit there, and I'm gonna say Northwestern at 1-5 beats Iowa.
Ooh. I actually peeked at that one because I thought it was a possibility.
This game, it's at Northwestern, and Northwestern likes to grow the grass in their field a foot tall, and it's still natural grass, and
it's going to be a little windy.
They don't cut it. It's going to be a little windy. It's a noon kickoff in Eastern time, which means it's an 11 a.m. kickoff there in Chicago.
Yeah.
And as we've seen with Iowa, not just back to what we were talking, the rant I went on with their game against Michigan a few weeks ago. Their offense, whenever they leave Iowa, it doesn't travel with them.
No,
they
their
can't
offense does not travel well.
They can't get consistently anything going. Nate Stanley turns it over a lot on the road. And I know Northwestern has not been good. Obviously, their
offense is less than ideal.
There's no excuse. There's no defending a 1-5 team. But I just think all of those factors combined. I know it's not a far trek for Iowa to make this time to go to Chicago to play Northwestern, but all those things considered, I just have no faith in Iowa's offense whatsoever. Defense is fine. They'll keep them in the game. This will probably be a game where the first 1 to 15 points wins.
Could be true.
But an 11 a.m. kickoff there, that's always difficult to try and get excited to play for when it's like, yeah, I'm going to have breakfast, and in an hour and a half I got to go play a football game.
Yeah, even earlier wake up than normal.
Yeah.
They're going to be waking up about 6:30 in the hotel to get ready for that game. They'll be over at the stadium by 9 a.m., it
throws everything off. It's just different.
It is a bit wacky on the schedule. I didn't foresee you picking that game, but I like it. That's a bold prediction. I don't go quite as bold usually.
You went with a pretty good one though, because UCLA is 2-5. I think Arizona State's 5-2.
5-2. It was a little bold for my predictions. I don't usually go that bold. But.
You did try and say Hawaii would beat Air Force last week.
Bad.
That kind of blew up on you.
Yeah, Air Force came out with those sweet ass uniforms and promptly
should have known.
Stomped my friggin' upset pick.
You should have known with those uniforms.
Got yours right though.
I don't even remember who I had.
You had Boise State going down.
That's right. BYU beat Boise State.
Beating Boise State.
That's right. Even though I said it was a Friday night game on the show, it was actually Saturday night.
But misspoke
there. But yeah,
picked the game though.
BYU did beat Boise State, so there you go. See, we're getting
a ranked team going down last week, and that was true. We both got ranked teams going down this week too.
Absolutely, and to teams that are well below 500 and won't make a bowl.
No,
for various reasons. So there you go.
Chippewa's looking for bowl eligibility.
That's right. And the other one,
that
one is you're pissed that Central Michigan's
just
a dog.
Disrespected.
Yeah, with a chance to get bowl eligible, by the way. When's the last time that happened?
2 years ago.
2 years? Okay.
Yeah, 2 years ago. They were 3 out of the 4 years with John Bonamigo, and then the wheels just fell off at 1-11.
But still.
Quick turnaround, though.
Chance to go play in the Bahamas Bowl again.
Going from 1-11 to a 6 wins in the first 9 games, not so bad. So
call up Jim McElwain and see if he can get you tickets as a former player to go to the Bahamas Bowl.
I probably don't donate enough money anymore to go to the Bahamas Bowl, but we'll see.
Fair point. That's what it always boils down to.
It always boils down to money.
So there you go, and there are upset picks, and we are just about out of time here. I want to thank everybody that's been tuning in and having conversation here in the chats. We really appreciate that. Jimmy James, Brian Sullivan, regular analytics. Elder Boy was in there as well, chatting as well. Guys, if you're not subscribed already, do so. To you folks out there who have been watching and will continue to watch this on demand, do so as well. Throw us a subscribe. Click the little bell there so you'll be notified.
Pop up on your smartphone every
Exactly.
week.
It'll let you know exactly when we're live, so that while you're on the go, at the office, wherever you may be, enjoying some brunch, you can join in the conversation with us as well.
And tell your friends, because unfortunately for us, analytics has totally screwed us. So we've become word of mouth. You know, we post the stuff on Facebook. We get like 5 people that actually get a chance to see it. They're probably already subscribers. So, you know, tell your friends if you think we're funny, if you don't think we're funny, if you think we're idiots. You know, sometimes we have idiots in the chat. You know, chat with us. We can be idiots together. It's fun. You know, Sully and Jimmy are friends of mine. And Jason and I are friends. This is how this works. We're just friends talking football.
That's right.
We give you opinions. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. But, you know, tell your friends, come in the chat with us, listen, tell us what you think, give us suggestions. You like this, you don't like this, whatever. Probably won't take the don't likes into advisement. But if you like something, we can do more of it. But you know, if you want more kickers, send us kickers, whatever it is. You know, we're always open for suggestions, and we always like to chat with you guys and interact. And it's a lot of fun for us. This is just something we do for fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and the more people that are involved, the more fun it is for us.
Absolutely. And hit us up on social media. Like Adam said, we're on the facebook.com/Fumblegate. Our Twitter handles are at the bottom of the screen for our personal Twitter handles and the show Twitter handle. So follow us on there. And as you said, subscribe to us on YouTube. If there's a suggestion you have, you can also email us, fumblegatepodcast@gmail.com. You can send us an email there. So thank you to everybody for joining us. This is a lot of fun here today. We are actually going to be off next week. We're taking the bye week next week.
We may give you some snippets. We're not going to be doing a full show next week. Jason moving into a new home next week. A big, exciting time for his family.
Yeah, so
unfortunately, it makes us busy.
Yeah, it's going to take me away from this next week. It's very possible you may have seen Adam though jump here on the YouTube or the Facebook.
I think there's got to be mention, particularly with what happens in these games. I think we got to have some mentions about what goes on. So
keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on that on the social media, both the Facebook and also get the subscribe to the YouTube channel, and hopefully Adam can give you some good insight going to wrap up not only what's going on this weekend, but get to look forward to next weekend. So with that, thank you to everybody who is watching. I will see you in 2 weeks, and we'll see if Adam joins you next week.
We'll see what we can come up with.
Next week, right here on Fumblegate.